The best time investments of your life.
So when we lived on the SEA, I remember. You remember Jerry Rich?
Mm-hmm.
He was coming. He was shoeing the horses for the SEA ranch. Well, I remember I asked Dad if I could ask him for a job. Well, I was either 6 or 7, and so I don't remember what Dad said specifically, but I went and asked Jerry Rich. I was like, hey, can can I work with you? So he said yes, and then it was every day. I think Monday through Thursday, maybe. He picked me up at 8 a.m. and dropped me off at noon, or took me back home at noon.
During the summer?
Yeah, during the summer, and he paid me $5 a day.
Just think how that wouldn't be. That probably wouldn't happen in 2023. Like, let's
No.
send our 6 or 7 year old with a guy and just have him help shoe horses. That was during the summer.
Yeah, yeah, and
Why was that a good time investment? What did it?
well,
Because you don't shoe horses.
no. That was starting somewhat of a discipline.
Mm-hmm. Work discipline.
Mm-hmm. I learned that from Dad, whether I knew it or not. You're watching him do these things, and so you just think, oh, that's what I want to do. I think that was such a good time investment because of the discipline and then the mindset, and not in a way where it's like early child labor,
Mm-hmm.
but it was more of just a responsibility. Like, I'm the one that asked for the job, then I kind of need to, I need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you before 10?
I would say the best time investment before 10 was definitely with Janie Robinson. Just in ministry. I mean, outside of we're kind of talking outside of the obvious investment of just being connected to family,
Yeah.
mom and dad and Bradley, but
What do you think has carried over the most out of that?
excellence. Yeah, they. One thing I remember she said is that we had gone somewhere to do a kids crusade or something, and she paid me like $5 or something. And
Yeah.
the next time we went somewhere, I asked for money.
Oh.
I asked for money, and she was gracious but stern. She pulled me to the side and said, "We don't ask for money in ministry. Like, you don't do what you're doing for the money. If you get it, you're grateful, and if you don't, you're grateful, and you don't ask for it." And so that really, man, I did not ask for. I felt really bad. I think, I recently heard something. Guilt used to be a positive motivator at a different, season or era of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like if anybody feels guilt, it feels so judgmental and like condemnation. But I felt guilty for. I felt like I didn't appreciate what she had done, and I wanted to appreciate what she had done by allowing me to go along with them. And so it motivated me to have appreciation, and I didn't stay there in the guilt.
Kids could easily have the mindset today, and you do see it, I feel like, of if I do something, I need something in return.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and then also I need something in return, and I want it to be what I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you worked with Jerry, he paid you $5 a day, but then you didn't really get to pick and choose what you wanted to glean from that. Like, you just had to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing when I worked with Janie, there was a lot of things that I didn't like about it, actually. like I didn't like memorizing all of the skits and the sketches. I didn't like that. But that taught me memorization, and it taught me discipline in that. And it also taught me to be thankful for it, because a few years later I could get out on a platform and rattle off a sketch from memory, and if I was drawing a blank, I wasn't being embarrassed by floundering and not knowing what to say, because I knew exactly what to say.
No. If you think about it, in what you do now in ministry, in speaking to a congregation every week, that's a big degree of public speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So you started pretty early.
Yeah.
And a lot, I'd say a high percentage of kids don't, have that opportunity.
What about 11 to 20?
I feel like that one's a little harder, because there's, you're obviously involved in a lot more. Because I started sports late. So
Yeah.
some at the end of middle school and some in high school, I was involved in, you would say, fitness performance, but it was because I had to. Like, you were doing it as a team, coaches required it. A lot of it wasn't on my own will. Bob Juden, kind of. So I credit him and Tyler for being the ones that got me initially interested in, like, health and fitness or strength conditioning.
What year was that? Like, what grade were you in when you when you had Mr. Juden?
So I was a freshman or sophomore, and I remember Tyler had asked me, he goes, "Hey, do you want to," it was in the summer, and he goes, "Do you want to work out with my dad and I?" And looking back now, it was, Bob Juden was much ahead of the curve, because he was training Tyler. He wasn't working out with him. This was a all-out training session, which, if this makes sense, a lot of people will want to train with him because they want to do the 2-for-1. Well, I want to get my good part in of training. It's a reasonable thought, but I want to train you too. Whereas Bob Juden was solely focused on Tyler in, increasing his performance for the sport. Mm-hmm. And it's really the approach you should have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you were working out with him and Tyler, his son.
Yeah, because this was in the summer. Obviously teachers are off.
Mm-hmm.
And the freshman or sophomore year, Tyler asked me. So I start going with him and his dad. So now his dad is specifically training Tyler and I. And it was pretty tough. So Bob was, I think, secretly trying to catch me up with Tyler. And which was good. So yeah, that was kind of where all that started. And it really paid off.
During my 11 to 20?
Yeah, 11 to 20.
Definitely the music. I was fortunate to have, I had Mr. Raines at, I had Mrs. Wise in Dexter. And then when we moved to Ark City, I had a teacher named Mr. Raines for 2 years. Then when I went back, when we moved back to the Dexter area, then I had Mrs. Wise again. And so she's the one who sort of signed me up for all of the band clinics and honor bands and things like that. Because when you're going to a school that small, it's like I had a lot better chance of getting into stuff like that. Honestly, I don't know that I would have had those opportunities if I'd have stayed in Ark City. High school, I mean.
Yeah.
Because you're sort of a small fish in a big pond, but I'm thankful that I had it at Dexter, and it really helped me, because I can relate to what you're saying. There were times where I wasn't focused on it or liking it much, and it it was kind of like what you said. It was just in front of me. There was somebody constantly putting it in front of me. When I went to VBI, the truth is I found out all that I didn't know, which is a lot. I didn't know a lot about music, about theory, about all the things, and that's where I met Dr. Waters, and I learned about a lot of things that I didn't know. It's funny when you roll up into, have you had those experiences where you roll up?
Level.
Yeah, and you roll up there and you think I'm qualified, and you figure out, oh no, wait, I'm not as qualified as I thought I was.
In shaping your craft musically, who do you think pushed you more, Mr. Raines or Miss Wise?
Oh, Mrs. Wise for sure, because she spent the most time with me, and because again, Mr. Raines is teaching 170, 200 students at the same time. Mrs. Wise, 20, or whatever our band size was, I can't remember. So it was just, that's why I think probably, and you might relate to this, but probably in an educational setting, the instructor to student ratio being tighter is better.
Yeah,
probably. So, but for sure, her, out of the two of them.
When you went to VBI, your instructor, wasn't it, or one of your instructors was the lady,
Miriam Springer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say there it was probably Dr. Tim Waters for sure, and then Miriam Springer was also, I had keyboarding with her. What about you during that era? Who was in helping you invest besides Mr. Juden?
Like in the fitness performance world. Well, actually, I would say, and it would be 20 or 21-ish, but I can think of two people just right off, and I don't have to go in depth with these, but I ran 2 years of college track my freshman and sophomore year, and Mark Phillips. So that was my track coach. He was one that you could say kind of, carried me into that next season of performance, because with him I got to see someone who truly knew like mechanics and development and technique and all the little other areas, because generally speaking, I think when people think of fitness performance, they think of the gym, treadmills, dumbbells, barbells, maybe some med balls, some high intensity classes, which that's fine. But as far as like specific performance, he was, running track for him and learning from him was all the little nuanced things that made all the big things better. And that was and I told it, so he's since has passed away.
Oh, really?
But I was able to share with him several times and just thank him for
good.
helping me and broadening my vision in performance. And then when I went to K-State, one of my lab teachers was named Ben Webb, and he was a big influence.
So 21 to 30, what was your best time investment?
Taking the position of worship leader at New Hope was, of course, you and I are tied closely to that, season.
Yeah, how old were you? That was in 2008.
Mm-hmm. So I was
15 years ago, 16 years ago. So you were definitely mid-20s.
It's 22, 22, 23. If something scares you or makes you really uncomfortable, you should probably do it. Like if it challenges you, there's a lot of benefit to it, but it scares you, you should do it. And so I had one mentor when I worked with the Army, and she would always say, you should be really comfortable being uncomfortable. Or you should get really comfortable being uncomfortable. Anyway, when you and I had talked and you asked me to consider stepping in, to be honest, I was kind of terrified. But I felt the Lord, saying, I want you to do this. And two, I knew it would challenge me, and so I should probably do it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Oh, I was thinking about that. A lot happened in my 20 to 30 because I started a family during that time. I was working at First Intermark for almost for the majority of that whole decade. And then also I became a pastor when I was 27 years old. So a lot happened in 10 years now that I think about it. But I would definitely say without hesitation that the investment in family was the best, because I worked at a job whose my supervisor would come by at 5:00 every night and turn our lights out and say, go home. So that's how I started out, building a discipline of you go to work, you earn the bread, and then you go home and you connect. You're 38, so from 31 to now, what's been your best time investment?
Being willing to kind of start a new career, so to speak.
Yeah.
With Med Device, because I know the Lord placed me there because He put me 3 years at St. Francis in the hospital in Tulsa, and I love the job, but I kind of didn't know why. Well, I see why now, because going into Med Device gave me a huge leg up. That being said, still Med Device was totally different. It's sales, it's medical. I had limited reach or experience in both of them. Mm-hmm. And so being willing to invest time and learn, and being willing to admit that you don't know everything, and matter of fact, you really don't know much at all. Because you constantly have people willing to help you, but they're always asking you, well, are you familiar with this? Mm-hmm. And you want to say, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But you're not. I wasn't familiar with a lot of things. But that's been a huge ROI. Just being open-minded and willing to learn from other people, because you're in your 30s and you would like to present that, hey, I got this all under control. But I've learned a lot and can pretty much fly on my own now, but starting out wasn't that way. What about you? 30 to 40?
I would definitely say the pastoring and ministering, because I probably didn't start cutting my teeth until at least the third year. I don't see how pastors stay less than 3 years anywhere and accomplish things that will shift a community spiritually or otherwise. Mm-hmm. Because it just takes so much time. It really does take so much time. Like you said, the investment into people, it takes time. It's different than investing time into a craft or a skill that's like sit down and learn an instrument, or you take a course. When I took my statistics course, was 7-8 weeks, and I passed the test. It's dealing with people's not like that, and ministry is all about dealing with people. Well, we'll leave it at that, and then we'll come back and talk about something else.
Okay. So